This is titled Why We Shoot Deer in the Wild. This is a letter from somebody who wants to remain anonymous, who farms and works well, and actually tried this. I had this idea that I could rope a deer, put it in a stool and feed it up on grain for a couple of weeks and then kill it and eat it. The first step in this adventure was getting a deer. I figured that since they congregate at my cattle feeder and do not seem to have much fear of me when we're there, it should not be too difficult to rope one. I filled the cattle feeder and then hid down at the end with my rope. The cattle, having seen the rope thing before, stayed well back and they weren't having any of it. After about 20 minutes, my deer showed up, 3 of them. I picked out a likely looking one and stepped out from the end of the feeder and I threw my rope. The deer just stood there and stared at me. I wrapped the rope around my waist and twisted the end so I would have a good hold.
Good idea.
The deer just stood there and stared at me. I took a step towards it. It took a step away. I put a little tension on the rope and then received an education. The first thing I learned that while deer may stand there looking at you funny while you rope it, they are spurred into action when you start pulling on that rope. The second thing is I learned that kilo for kilo, a deer is a lot stronger than a cow or a colt. A cow or a colt in that weight range, I could fight down with a rope and some dignity. A deer, no chance. That thing ran and bucked and twisted and pulled. There was no controlling it and certainly no getting close to it. As it jerked me off my feet and started dragging me across the ground, it occurred to me that having a deer on a rope was not as nearly a good idea as I had originally imagined. The only upside is that they did not have as much stamina as many other animals. A brief 10 minutes later... It was tired and not nearly as quick to jerk me off my feet and drag me when I managed to get up. It took me a few minutes to realise this, since I was mostly blinded from the blood flowing out of the big gash on my head. At that point, I had lost my taste for grain-fed venison. I just wanted to get that devil creature off the end of that rope. Did you know that deer bite? They do. I never in a million years would have thought that a deer would bite somebody. So I was very surprised when I grabbed the rope and the deer grabbed a hold of my wrist. The proper thing to do when a deer bites you is to probably freeze and draw back slowly. I tried screaming and shaking instead. My method was ineffective. While I kept it busy tearing the tendons out of my right arm, I reached up with my left hand and pulled the rope off. That was when I got my final lesson in deer behavior for the day. Deer will strike you with their front feet.
They punch like boxers.
They rear right up on their back feet and strike right about the head and shoulder level. And then their hooves are actually surprisingly sharp. When this deer tried to have a go, I screamed and tried to run. I'd always been told not to try and run from horses, as there was a good chance they would hit you in the back of the head. Deer may not be so different from horses after all, besides being twice as strong and 3 times as evil, because the second I turned to run, it hit me right in the back of the head and knocked me down. Now, when a deer does this, it does not immediately leave. Instead, they paw your back and jump up and down on you while you are laying there crying like a little girl covered in your own blood and covering your head.
Like the bear in Revenant.
I managed to finally crawl under the truck and the deer went away.
Christ.
So now I know why people take rifles with a scope when they go deer hunting. It's to even the odds. All these events are true, so help me, Jesus, from an educated farmer.
Wow, that is an absolutely wild and epic yarn.